All right, let's dive in. Today, we're heading back in time, back to ancient Rome, and into the world of Gladiator. But, and here's the twist, we're not looking at what the critics thought. Nope, we're going deeper, way deeper. We're diving headfirst into the Colosseum of user reviews on IMDb.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to see what stuck with people, you know? Like what really stayed with them long after they left the theater, years, sometimes even decades later. It's different than a critic's take, right? Those are more immediate impressions. This is something else.
Exactly. So first off, the overall vibe, overwhelmingly positive. We're talking best film ever territory here. People called it timeless, spellbinding. One user even said Hollywood just doesn't make them like Gladiator anymore. Clearly this movie hit a nerve, but why? What's the secret sauce here?
Well, that's what we're going to unpack. It's more than just the big battles in the Roman Empire setting, although, of course, that's all part of it. But I think a lot of it comes down to the performances. Like Russell Crowe as Maximus. People just, they love his intensity, the way he embodies this, like, stoic warrior, almost mythical.
Yeah, totally. One user even said, and I quote, Crowe the Maximus is the man men want to be and the man women want to be with. Talk about charisma. But it's not just the tough guy act, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, that's where Crowe's real talent shows, I think. He can show you what Maximus is feeling. The grief, the anger, that desire for revenge, all with this subtle touch, which isn't easy in a big action movie like this.
Yeah, he doesn't overplay it, but you still feel every bit of Maximus's pain and his determination. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because he holds back like that, it makes the moments when he does let loose even more powerful. It's a slow burn, for sure, but when it ignites, whoa, watch out.
But a hero's only as good as his villain, right? And let's be honest, Joaquin Phoenix as Commodus, he's the kind of bad guy you love to hate. Reviewers called him pathetic, childish, even creepy. Some even said ruthless.
See, and that's the really interesting thing about Phoenix's performance. He doesn't make Commodus this, one-dimensional bad guy. He gives you these glimpses of his insecurities, his jealousy, even this, desperate need for his father's love. Right? It's complex. It makes you almost sympathize with him a little.
Yeah, you get why he's so messed up, which makes him even scarier in a way.
Exactly. You see where the darkness comes from? So even though he's doing these awful things, he still feels human, relatable in a weird way.
Speaking of things that feel real, reviewers couldn't stop talking about the visuals in Gladiator. Those epic shots of Rome, the gritty realism of the gladiator fights, it's a visual feast, for sure.
And that's Ridley Scott for you. He's a master of visual storytelling. Every shot, it pulls you deeper into the world he's created. And with Gladiator, that world is just, wow, both beautiful and brutal. Take that opening battle scene, the way he uses slow motion and wake-ups to show the chaos, just the brutality of the fighting. Masterful filmmaking.
Yeah, one reviewer even said, a stunning piece of action sequence construction. The way those scenes are filmed, you can almost feel the weight of every sword blow, the dust, the sweat, just the desperation. It's not just mindless action, it grabs you emotionally.
Exactly. Scott understands that it's not just about making things look pretty. It's about using those visuals to make you feel something, build the tension, give you that visceral experience.
And it's not just what you see, it's what you hear, too. The music, particularly Hans Zimmer's score, gets tons of praise for adding that emotional depth. People called it sublime. Some even specifically mentioned Lisa Gerrard's, her haunting vocals. It's definitely a soundtrack that stays with you.
Yeah, Zimmer's he's got this way of creating music that's both epic and incredibly personal at the same time. Like in Gladiator, he uses this blend of orchestral and world music to evoke that grandeur of Rome, but also the character's inner struggles. It's a score that can make your heart race during the fights and then break your heart during the quieter moments.
It's like the music's almost another character in the film, guiding your emotions, making you connect to the story even more deeply.
Yeah, you nailed it. It's the emotional glue, it holds everything together. But, and there's always a but, isn't there? Some reviewers pointed out that Gladiator shares some similarities with a 1964 film called The Fall of the Roman Empire. One user even went so far as to say Gladiator owes a debt to that earlier film. So the question is this unoriginal? Or can a film be both inspired by and an improvement upon its predecessors?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because on one hand, you've got this hugely popular, award-winning movie that clearly connected with audiences, but then you have this shadow of possible influence lurking behind it.
And that's where things get really interesting, right? Because it makes us think about what originality in art even means. Like, can anything truly be brand new? Or are we all just remixing old ideas, In the case of Gladiator, I think it's a bit of both.
Okay, now you've got to tell me more about this bit of both.
Well, Gladiator clearly takes some cues from the fall of the Roman Empire, the setting, some plot points, even certain character types. But it also does something new with it all. Like, it really focuses on Maximus's personal journey, his grief, his quest for revenge. It's that emotional core that lifts Gladiator above a simple remake.
So it's like taking a familiar tune and building a whole new song around it. You can hear the influence, but you also appreciate the new elements, the fresh perspective.
Exactly. And that's why, I think it's a bit too simple to just say Gladiator is unoriginal. It's its own thing. It stands on its own 2 feet, even while acknowledging where it came from.
I like that. Stands on its own 2 feet. But even with all this praise, we can't ignore the elephant in the Colosseum, right? Not every review was glowing. Some viewers, they had issues. The pacing, historical inaccuracies. And yeah, even that ending. One user went so far as to say the ending destroyed the movie for them.
Well, that's the thing about these deep dives, right? We get the full picture, the good, the bad, the everything in between. Even a movie as popular as Gladiator, it's going to have its critics.
It's a good reminder that taste is subjective. What one person finds thrilling, another might find predictable. And that's totally okay.
Absolutely. That's what makes these conversations so interesting. We're not here to, crown a winner or anything. It's about exploring different ways people experience a film, And with Gladiator, clearly it spoke some strong feelings, good and bad.
So we've got the epic scope, the acting, the music, even the originality debate. But what about the emotional impact? Did people walk away from Gladiator feeling something? Did it stick with them?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's where the true power of Gladiator lies. Because beyond the spectacle, the Roman setting, it's really a story about things we all go through. Love, loss, betrayal, wanting justice.
It's funny you should say that because I noticed that a lot of the reviews talked about how emotionally moved they were by Gladiator. Like, some people were really touched by it.
And that's what makes it more than just an action movie, right? It can make you cheer, make you cry, make you feel all the things. And those emotions, that's what stays with you long after the credits roll.
So for our listeners out there, we've uncovered a lot about what people loved and maybe didn't love about Gladiator. But before we move on to part 2, I'm curious.
What's on your mind?
Well, you've walked us through all this, the good, the bad, the technical stuff, the historical context. But I gotta ask, on a personal level, did Gladiator conquer your heart?
Ooh, that's a great question. And honestly, it's one I've been wrestling with this whole time,
I love it when a deep dive gets meta. So what's the verdict? Did it win you over or not?
It's tough to say, like a simple yes or no. Gladiator it's a film that makes you think, And I think that's part of why it's so fascinating. On a technical level, it's amazing. The visuals, the music, the acting, all top-notch. No question there.
So you're acknowledging the skill, the artistry, but did it grab you emotionally? Did you feel that connection to ancient Rome, or was it more of a heady experience?
That's the thing. I admired it. I really did. I understood why people love it. But for me, personally, it was more intellectual than emotional, if that makes sense.
So mind engaged, but not so much the heartstrings. Any thoughts on why that might be?
I think it might tie back to that whole original versus inspired by thing we talked about. Knowing how much Gladiator takes from the fall of the Roman Empire, it made me more aware of the structure, the plot points. I was appreciating the craft more than being swept away by the story.
I get that. It's like when you hear a song that samples another song, right? You can enjoy the new version, but there's that echo of the original. You can't quite escape it.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing. I totally get why Gladiator worked for so many other people. It's a big, exciting movie, a story about revenge and redemption, classic stuff. If you're not as familiar with the older film, I bet the emotional impact is huge.
It's a good point. It shows how we all bring different things to the table when we watch a film, Our experiences, our expectations, it all shapes how we react to a story.
For sure. And it reminds us that audiences are diverse, right? Some people, they might want a historically accurate film about Rome, every detail perfect. Others, they just want to be entertained. And both are valid, you know?
Totally. And speaking of those different expectations, some people did complain about the pacing. Maybe that's because they wanted a faster-paced film, more action, less character development.
Could be. Gladiator does it takes its time. You know, it builds the story, the emotional weight. If you're looking for nonstop thrills, you might find yourself getting a little restless during the quieter scenes.
Yeah, it's like some people are there for the chariot races and the gladiator fights, and others are more into the political drama, the inner lives of the characters. It shows how important it is to know what you're in the mood for, right? And be open to different styles of storytelling.
Absolutely. And that willingness to be open for different approaches, it's important for viewers and filmmakers, you know? Like, we saw how some people had issues with historical accuracy. But there's always this balance, right, between getting the facts right and telling a compelling story that people will connect with. And Gladiator, it plays a little loose with history sometimes.
It's that age-old debate, how much is too much? How much can you change in the name of good storytelling? I mean, imagine if Gladiator was just a dry, factual retelling of Roman history. It might be accurate, but would it be as fun to watch? Would it have had the same impact?
That's the question, isn't it? I think it's up to each viewer to decide what matters more to them. Some people, they might be bothered by any changes to the history. Others might appreciate how Gladiator uses history as a starting point to tell a bigger story, one about things we all experience, you know.
And those universal themes, that's what makes stories resonate across time and cultures, right? Even though Gladiator is set in ancient Rome, it's about things we can all relate to. Loss, betrayal, wanting justice, that need for revenge. And those themes, along with the visuals and the performances, that's what makes Gladiator stick with people.
Exactly. It reminds us that at the end of the day, storytelling, it's about those shared human experiences, no matter where or when the story takes place. And Gladiator, it does that really, really well.
So we've talked about the good, the bad, the emotional stuff. We've dug into the technical details, the acting and the history, even the music. But I gotta ask, after going through all these reviews, do you find yourself wanting to rewatch Gladiator?
You know, it's funny. I can't say it's at the top of my list, but this deep dive, it has given me a new appreciation for it, for the craft, the impact, you know. It makes me want to watch it again, but with fresh eyes. Maybe notice those subtle details we talked about.
I think that's one of the coolest things about these deep dives. They make us engage with films on a deeper level. Like, look beyond our initial reactions and really explore all the layers, all the artistry that you might miss on a casual viewing. So for everyone listening, we've uncovered a lot about what makes Gladiator tick, but now it's your turn.
Totally. What did Gladiator mean to you? What stuck with you? Did you get swept away by it all? Or were you more interested in the technical side, the historical context?
Let us know. We love hearing your thoughts, keeping the conversation going. And don't forget to join us for part 3, where we'll continue exploring Gladiator, but this time with a focus on.
Well, now, wouldn't you like to know? You'll have to tune in to find out.
That's right, folks. A little cliffhanger for you. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the epic conclusion of our Gladiator deep dive. Welcome back to the Gladiator deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, right? The good, the bad, the Crowe, the Phoenix, even those debates about historical accuracy. But in this final round, we're going a bit deeper, a bit more, I don't know, philosophical.
Yeah, this is where we get to wrestle with those big questions that Gladiator throws at us, the themes that go beyond just the swords and sandals, you know.
Okay, so less about the literal blood and sand, more about the metaphorical kind.
Exactly. We've talked about those universal themes, the love, the loss, the betrayal, the revenge. But there's another layer here, I think, something we haven't fully explored yet.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me. What's this metaphorical layer all about?
Well, think about Maximus's journey. He starts as this powerful general, right? The man of action, duty. But then, bam, he loses everything. His family, his position, his freedom. He's thrown into this brutal world of gladiatorial combat where it's all about survival.
Yeah, it's that classic fall from grace, the hero stripped of everything he holds dear. But he doesn't just give up, does he?
No, not at all. And that's where the deeper meaning comes in. Because Maximus, even with all that pain, all that suffering, he chooses to hold on to his values. Honor, integrity, justice. He can easily just give in to the rage, the thirst for revenge. But he doesn't.
So it becomes about something bigger than just getting even. He's fighting for something more.
Exactly. And I think that's what people connect with, you know, on a deep level. Because it speaks to that human need for meaning, for purpose, especially when things are tough. We all face challenges, setbacks, loss. But how do we react? Do we let it break us? Or do we find a way to fight for something better?
Yeah, it's that classic struggle, right? Vengeance versus justice. Maximus could have easily become this dark, vengeful figure, but he chooses a different path, even though it's dangerous, even though it means sacrifice.
And that's what makes him so inspiring, right? He shows us that even when things are at their worst, we can choose to be better, to fight for what's right, even when it seems impossible.
It's a powerful message, especially in a movie that's so action-packed, full of spectacle. It's like Gladiator sneaks these deep ideas in between the sword fights and the chariot races, and they hit you even harder because you're not expecting them.
Yeah, and that's the sign of a great film, right? One that can entertain you, but also make you think, make you feel something real.
It's like the movie saying, "Hey, enjoy the show, but don't forget to think about the big stuff too, life, death, the choices we make."
Exactly. It reminds us that even in this world of gladiators and emperors, that the human spirit, it can endure, and that the fight for what's right, it never really ends.
So, looking back of all these user review, it seems like Gladiator, it's more than just a fun action flick, right? It's something that gets people talking, debating, even examining their own beliefs.
And that's the mark of a film that truly succeeds, isn't it? It stays with you, makes you think, maybe even inspires you to be a little better, a little braver.
Well said. Well, we've reached the end of our Gladiator deep dive. We've analyzed the acting, the story, the historical context, even debated the music, but the conversation it doesn't have to end here.
No, absolutely not. It's your turn now. What did Gladiator mean to you? What stuck with you? Did you find yourself cheering for Maximus, questioning Commodus, or maybe even thinking about your own place in the world, the big picture?
We want to hear from you. Share your thoughts, keep the conversation going. And from all of us here at the Deep Dive, thanks for listening. Strength and honor.